Welcome to the video. Today we will be doing a recap of a 2011 British erotic and psychology movie titled Shame. The movie focuses on Brandon and his sex addiction, but how well can he hide and control the addiction? Stay till the end to find out. As the movie kicks off, we are quickly introduced to Brandon and his persona. He's on a train sitting across a beautiful woman. He keeps his eyes glued to her and she returns the favor. While staring at her like his life depends on it, we see flashbacks of Brandon. He is all about having sex. We see him having sex with different women at different times. We then see that his life revolves around a pattern: sex and work. Nothing new happens and he seems satisfied with it. Back to the present, he's still staring at the woman, and at this point we already know why. The lady becomes uncomfortable and she crosses her legs, but that doesn't make him break his gaze. She then stands up and walks towards a pole to change the whole scenario, but he comes and stands right behind her. She's wearing an engagement ring and we see that she is married. Brandon also realizes this, but he does not care. The woman steps out of the train and Brandon follows, but he loses her in the crowd. Brandon gets back to his expensive apartment and he watches porn. He gets a voicemail from his sister, but he ignores it. They have a strange relationship. She's dependent and is always trying to reach out to him, but he is kind of an introvert. All he wants to do is stay in his own space undisturbed and have sex, of course. The next day he goes to work, and during a meeting he focuses on something else. He's lost in his thoughts till someone says, "I find you disgusting." This sentence stands out to him and he feels like the person is referring to him. I'm pretty sure you know why he felt this way. He looks up and is relieved when he finds out the person is not talking to him. But he gets bothered again when he notices his computer is being taken away. The computer is filled with pornographic videos and he's worried he will be exposed. He gets tensed and goes into the bathroom to masturbate. That is one way he handles tension. He gets back home and senses that someone is in his apartment. The figure that the person is in the shower, and he grabs a baseball bat to attack the person. He gets to the bathroom and is shocked to see Sissy. He is not happy to see her, as now he no longer has his privacy. And we already know how much he values his privacy. He's not forced to watch porn in his room. While watching porn in his room, he hears Sissy crying to someone on the phone, telling the person that she loves him and begging not to leave. Brandon hears this and feels bad for her. He, out of sympathy now, acts a bit nicer to her and even cooks for her. The next day we see them go to the subway together and act like normal siblings, but Brandon is still a bit stiff. She tells him that she wants to become a singer and she manages to convince him to come watch her performance the next day. The next day at work, Brandon convinces his boss and friend David to come with him to the club to watch Sissy's performance. Later that night, Brandon and David are seated in the club watching Sissy sing a sad jazz version of New York, New York. She sings it excellently and this surprises Brandon. He has no idea his sister could sing this well. After her performance, she comes to sit with them and David starts hitting on her. Brandon is visibly uncomfortable with this, but he remains silent. David, after realizing that Sissy does not know how to drive, offers to teach her. Brandon knows the game David is playing. The trio leaves the club in a taxi and right in it, Sissy and David make out. Brandon is disgusted by this, but he still doesn't do anything about it. They get to Brandon's apartment and David and Sissy rush in, leaving Brandon behind. By the time Brandon got home, they were already having sex in his room and on his bed. Their noise makes him uncomfortable and he heads out for a run. By the time he gets back, David has left and his room is now empty. He changes his bed sheet and goes to bed. Sissy joins him on it, but he sends her out of his room. The next day, in the office, Brandon goes to David's office to get his computer back and David comments on the pornographic content he saw on the computer. But fortunately, David does not know who the computer belongs to and he just assumes it's for one of the interns. Later that night, Brandon takes a walk and from the window of an apartment he sees a couple having sex. He wishes that was him. Later that night, he meets up with one of his female colleagues for dinner in a restaurant. But surprisingly, he does not make any move on her that night. The dinner ends well and both go their separate ways. Brandon goes back home and he masturbates in the bathroom. Sissy walks in on him and catches him in the act. Brandon is not happy she walked in on him and he chokes her on the couch, but it is nothing more than that. But it gets worse when she comes across his laptop during one of his sessions with an online stripper. She now knows the type of brother she has. Brandon gets angrier when he realizes that she accessed his laptop. He gathers all the pornographic content in his apartment and angrily disposes them, including his laptop. The next day, he and the co-worker he had dinner with a night ago go to a luxurious hotel to finish what they started. Brandon secretly sniffs cocaine and is ready for the action. He and the co-worker start making out on the bed, and just when we thought they would have sex, he asks her to leave. She leaves disappointed. He sits on the bed looking sad, and we then see him having sex with another woman in that same room. He gets back home and watches cartoon. Sissy joins him and he asks her where she is coming from. She tells him that she was with David. He then reveals to her that David is actually married and she tells him that she already knows. David did not hide this from her. He then tells her that she needs to leave and find her own place. She tells him that they are family and they should always be there for each other, but he is not having any of it and still insists that she leave. That same night, he heads out to find pleasure, but pleasure turned to pain when he hit on another guy's girl and got beaten up by the boyfriend. But that doesn't stop him. He goes to a club and gets the pleasure that he's desperate for. But he doesn't stop there. He enters another hotel room with two different women, and he has sex with both of them simultaneously. He, for the first time in a while, seems happy. His night was going great. When he leaves, he sees that Sissy left a voicemail on his cell phone. He gets off the train he is on due to its being delayed by an implied suicide further up the tracks. He calls Sissy, but she doesn't answer. He gets worried and he rushes home. When he gets there, Sissy is lying on the bathroom floor unconscious after having cut her wrists. Seeing his sister in this condition breaks him. He blames himself for it. If he had been there for her and had not gone out to have sex, this would not have happened. She gets rushed to the hospital and fortunately she survives. He visits her in the hospital and when he leaves, he heads out under the rain, collapses and cries. He is obviously not happy with himself, his addiction, and the way he treats his sister. As the movie comes to a close, we see Brandon back in a subway, sitting across the same beautiful woman we saw in the opening scene. They once again lock eyes together, but this time she's smiling at him, showing that she is interested. But surprisingly, he does not smile back, but he did keep his gaze on her. She stands up and goes to the same pole, probably expecting him to stand behind her like he did the last time, but he remains seated. She finally leaves the train, and he sits there contemplating if he should go after her or not. And the movie comes to a close. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video.